Welcome to Women Don't Do That, where we empower you with inspiration, knowledge, and skills to redefine your boundaries and unleash your potential. I'm Stephanie Minton, founder and CEO of Beacon North Strategies and your guide. Small town girl turned CEO while navigating career, motherhood, ADHD, and chronic migraines. Our conversations range from interviews with visionary women to solo episodes filled with actionable insights. We are your hub for turning what ifs into let's go. Are you ready to redefine your possible? Let's get started.
Leadership right now can feel like a constant tug of war. Be decisive, but be human. Move fast, but protect your people. Hit the numbers, but don't burn people out. Today on Women Don't Do That, I am back with Selena Rezvani. She's a leadership speaker and author of Quick Leadership. So this is her latest book that we're going to be talking about today. If you listened to our past conversation, you know her from talking about confidence and self-advocacy tools, and you can also find that episode in the show notes. But this time, we're going to dive deeper into modern leadership, how to build trust, run meetings that actually work, lower stress instead of amplifying it, and lead across generations with clarity and respect. Let's get into it. Welcome, Selena.
Hi, Stephanie. It's so good to be back.
It's very exciting to have you back today. And I know we talked about it the last time that you were on, that you were writing this book about leadership. And so I'm so excited to have you here to talk about it today. We're now in the new year when this is releasing. So what does life look like for you right now? Maybe it's different than what we talked about a couple months ago. You're doing a book tour.
I am doing a book tour, and I have to say, it's felt like a big Mount Everest to promote and launch this book. It was early November. And so I'm kind of telling people that I'm taking the biggest exhale ever right now. I'm like fatigued, thrilling, exciting, messy, all the things, kind of promotion and launch, and just really enjoying taking a breath right this minute.
That's good. I'm glad you're getting some time to breathe amongst it all. I have the new book right here, actually. It's called Quick
Hey.
Leadership. Who did you write this book for?
I really wrote it for people who, especially after my last book, Quick Confidence, said things like, great, I've worked on my own self-belief. How do I influence others? Like,
Hmm.
how can I extend that same confidence I may be building in me to other people? How do I elevate the teams I'm on? And, I personally have a bias, Stephanie, towards quick things. I'm busy like a lot of people. And so I appreciate getting the tip really concretely and early when someone's explaining it to me. And so I really try to do that in this book, knowing managers, leaders, regardless of your title today, don't have a lifetime to learn this people stuff, this
Hmm.
people management stuff, how to motivate and keep your team inspired and engaged. So, really meant to give them that concrete stuff that they can use Monday at 9 a.m.
Hmm. I love that. And I was sharing with you before we started that I've been listening to the audiobook, and I do feel like that rings true throughout it. It's very practical takeaways that people can take with them. And you're right, so many of us are so busy, and especially our listeners who are busy women and many busy working moms. This is definitely the type of leadership book that is great for them and important for us as well. If people read the book, like what is the one message, if they forget anything else, that you would want them to remember?
Hmm. I would say we have been given some really lousy advice about leadership, myself included, over the years.
Right.
And it's time to kind of modernize that definition. I
Hmm.
know I was raised and brought into the work world and even got an MBA and was really taught it's about being unflappable. It's about never let them see you sweat. you
Yeah.
know, really being the decisive, bulletproof type of leader. And I can't think any more differently today about that. It's not to say you don't need strength and stamina to lead. Of course you do, and to make tough calls. But people want a human leader today. And
Yeah.
that's really what I hope people will take away is this is not actually asking you to juggle six more balls in the air than you're already doing. It's actually saying it's okay to be your human self, to go from that stoic pillar
Hmm.
to an empathic human
Hmm.
who talks about your mistakes, who admits it when maybe you're work helping your team through a change and you're a little rattled by the change too, like being a
Yes.
little more emotionally honest. It's amazing how far that can go with people, I think, especially today.
Hmm. Yeah, there's so much going on in people's lives, and it does allow you to lead better. For instance, I have someone who works with me who works part-time and also has a family. And the other week, she seemed a little bit overwhelmed and was sharing how she had three papers due because it was the end of the school season, and one of our subcontractors that works with us was saying, I haven't got something back from so and so. And I said, well, they've had a really busy week this week with other things going on. And so I think this is week we just need to give everybody some grace. And it's really helpful to know that that's what's going on, opposed to thinking, oh, someone's performance this week is really off. It's like, no,
Yeah.
people's lives are up and down. And yes, you want to perform regardless, but sometimes real life happens. And this is a week where real life has happened. And that's okay.
Oh my goodness. And I couldn't support that more, what you're talking about, the leadership you're modeling, that most generous interpretation instead of least generous interpretation.
Hmm.
Because we can all do that, right? We
Yes.
can be quick to blame, quick to personalize things that may not be personal at all. Why is
Yes.
so and so taking all day to get back to me? They're so selfish. This is proof they don't think I matter. We can really get carried away. I know I have with
Yes.
these narratives where you decide something
Right.
instead of they may be in all day meetings. They may be working behind the scenes to help me in my problem or
Hmm.
issue, and I may not know it. You
Yeah.
know, they may be trying to get back to me when they have their first free moment.
Yes.
And so I think that's so important to have you know, a grace-oriented culture. Because I
Yes.
think for
Yeah.
any of us who's ever worked in a very blame-centric
Mm.
culture, man, that is a place ruled by fear.
Right.
And
Yes. Yeah.
you know,
It's
who does their best
interesting.
work that
Yeah, it's
way?
interesting you describe it that way because the other thing that I try to do is have a very open communication model. And also that applies for people having that with me because sometimes I find it's hard for people to have those open conversations. But I would rather know if someone's wondering, why didn't I get back? Let's just talk about it. Because then I could be assuming something that's not true. Or you could tell me, oh, hey, a last minute emergency came up at daycare and I wasn't able to tell you right away. So instead of just having these assumptions, I'd actually rather talk to you about it. And that can be really uncomfortable for some people.
I think you're right. I think what can really help with that is when, of course, it's more the norm on your team. Like
Hmm.
even the manager is sharing with you moments of mess in their life, you know,
Yes.
even if it's a pipe burst and I have to attend to that at
Yeah.
home. So
Yeah.
change of plans, folks, or a kid or a loved one, some kind of mental health day, right? When we are
Yes.
a little more open about these things, may seem small to the
Hmm.
manager, it's huge to the
Hmm.
people around seeing
Yes.
there's space for that. That's
Yes.
allowed here. Like you are allowed to live and breathe with normal human rhythms. And I think this is so important, Stephanie, because right now there's this trend in corporate that is the opposite of this, and it's being called surveillance culture,
Ah,
where
yes.
somebody's, you know, every keystroke of their computer is being measured, especially if they're remote. Every time they go off Slack and go from green to red, it's noted and the window of time is noted, and people are getting admonished for this. So to me, it's really the opposite of extending that trust that
Right.
I see you as a capable grown up.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's so important. Yeah, so much to unpack there. When you look at this book, is there a particular leadership problem where you thought, you know what, like this is part of why I want to write this book. This is why this is so important.
Mm. Yeah, I think one of them that's something that's happened to me myself, and that I see in a lot of places. It's probably the number one shift I talk about that people say, this is hard for me. And it's going from this idea that I should know it all as the
Mm,
manager. I
right.
should reinforce that
Right.
I know it all. I've got the answers. I'm the solution giver. And managers are mortals. Like they do not know it all. And most likely your people know you don't know it all the
Yeah.
time. And so I think one of the switches that you want to make, not just mentally, but in practice, is going from oracle, come to me and I will solve the
Mm,
issue, rescue, to resourcer.
mm,
You are resourcing them, you are equipping them, you are helping them see what's available in their toolbox, and of course, being a practical support yourself,
mm.
so you can use that knowledge and experience. But I
Yes.
talk about like a really simple exercise in the book, which is when an employee comes to you, maybe they're like, Stephanie, I have this problem with a client and they're unhappy. What should I do?
Yeah.
You could swoop in and tell them the right answer, or you could ask three. You could say, well, tell me what you've tried so far,
Mm,
and all right, what do you see as the logical next step here?
hmm.
What solution are you leaning towards? And it's taking some pressure off you as the manager to
Yes.
either pretend or perform knowing it all, right?
Hmm.
Which who really wants to do that with
Yes.
all that work is?
Yeah.
To equipping, to
Hmm.
really equipping them. Somebody did that for me once, Selena, uh, why don't you give the presentation to the client? You know,
Yes.
helping me with the resources, but that extension of I trust you and I trust
Hmm.
your judgment. You're
Yes.
you're you're
Yes.
lessening dependence on you and you're helping them build that problem solving muscle. That's so important.
Yes. And it makes me think about, and you talk about this book too, the mentorship side, right? It's really mentoring. And I have found, I don't know about you, but one of the things I'll say to my staff sometimes is, sometimes I will pose it back to you as a question. It's not because I'm trying to be difficult, but it's, I want to build that muscle in you that you're starting to think about it. And if you're, struggling with that, I'm happy to step in, but I want to know, like, what do you think about solving this? And I like what you said about judgment, and it's actually a line I will use with people when I can tell they're not sure, but they do know what to do, and I'll say, I trust your judgment. Like you may not in this moment, but I do, and so it's okay for you to go forward with it. And I find that makes a really big difference is when you give them the permission to do it.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's like a really simple example, I think, in the book of just, somebody planning an event, right, for an executive
Mm,
on a Monday night coming up. And they go to the person and they're like, now, what are your favorite cheeses for this wine and cheese event? Like, tell me. And the person could have totally been like, goat cheese and brie and this other one and make sure it's all there, but catching themselves in the moment, because sometimes it feels good to our ego to be
right.
the answer giver. Catching yourself for a moment, pausing and saying, you know what? I trust you to handle it. Like,
Hmm.
And just think about those two different approaches for the person planning the event, right? It's like one is, oh boy, I better never use my own discretion.
Yes, and I better never forget the brie.
That's right. Like I just found out one more time that like they are the answer holder, and I best not make assumptions or use my best judgment.
Right.
Versus the other way,
Yes.
you've got this. I trust you. It's such a silly, simple example, but I think it makes the point that all of us can extend that confidence to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I love about the book is that it's about modern leadership, right? Like you talk about remote work and even just you're basing it off of more recent evidence about leadership and I don't know, like pulling back the curtain from things that have been long-standing ways of doing things that maybe aren't the best way of doing things. I said to you before the call that, so many of these books are written like 20 years ago by old white men, and this is really about the modern workplace and modern leadership. And so kudos to you for doing that. But
You.
for those listening, like what is modern leadership to you?
I think it is empathic,
Mm,
human first leadership. So, what does that look like in practice, right? It might sound nice, kind of pie in the sky and aspirational.
right.
It could be as simple as, like, I'm going to check in with the person before I check in on the work.
Mm,
That
yeah.
simple. Like, how's your energy this week? Or how have things been tracking for you? Um, just creating that space and like habituating it that
Yes.
I care about you first as a person is huge. I think validating people's concerns is another
Mm,
just human first empathic move. Even when you, the manager, can't fix it or maybe can't do anything about that
hmm.
frustration. Maybe it's like a corporate mandate that they're dealing with, the rules of and are frustrated by. Just being the type of person who can first validate
Mm,
people's concerns and struggles. This is, part of emotional intelligence. That sounds really frustrating.
mm,
Or I see why that would be utterly exhausting, what you've been going through.
right.
Um, it makes sense you're feeling that way.
Hmm.
It's really small, but I think you are encouraging people to not suppress or hide problems when they
Mm,
come up from you. You're kind
right.
of encouraging and modeling like open two-way
Yeah.
communication. I think those are two very simple ways to be a little more human,
Hmm.
which again, I think that's what modern work calls for. I think sometimes, Stephanie, we are overcomplicating it.
Hmm.
We're,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
we're way overcomplicating it. Like we are people first.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I think that's so true. When you look at modern leadership, what are some of the things that you think might be outdated advice?
I think some of the advice that certainly I have battled, I know many people I coach have, is around just urgency.
Mm,
That
yes.
something has happened in the world where, it's no longer normal to wait for things.
Hmm.
Everything is marked urgent, it feels like. And
Yes.
that's something we can perpetuate and reinforce. Now it's not something we usually tell a newcomer when they
Hmm.
get into the role. They just pick it up that okay, if you can do one report by 10 a.m., two reports is must be great, must be better. And so I think part of the role of any kind of modern leader today, and I would argue modern professional too,
Mm,
is to be a really good advocate to stop just believing the hype,
yes.
accepting the norm of fake urgency, and
Hmm.
questioning it a little bit more.
Hmm.
Maybe you are that people manager and you're noticing, wow, my people are getting a lot of sideways requests and inbound and
Mm,
diagonal requests. really pulling them from their mission critical work, their focus time,
Right.
um, vetting those really
Mm-hmm.
ruthlessly. I call this, I hope you don't mind the cheeky term, being the shit umbrella.
Yeah.
Not the most glamorous part of being a manager, but boy, does this earn your people's
Mm.
respect
Mm-hmm.
and loyalty that
Yes.
when you could have kind of laid down and said, sure, use my team for that, and go ahead, use my team. You protected us. You were a shield. You
Mm.
know, you understood the assignment that we needed to
Yes.
focus, and you did something. You were willing to
Mm.
say no. It's not
Yes.
as common as you think.
Right. Yes. And I think that probably goes too to that past culture of like not being able to say no or to push back, right? And
Yes.
it makes me think a lot about planning because I know for myself, if something often becomes urgent for me or that I need for my staff, it's usually because I didn't plan ahead properly, right? And so that like planning, whether it's you or the leadership or the finance team or wherever it's coming from, is one piece that often makes things stressful that way. And then the other
Mhm.
piece is the question of like sometimes too much just is too much. You can't even
Yeah.
just like reprioritize it. It's just that you're being asked to do too much, and that's also something to analyze. And then the third thing is, I often say to my team, like, if there are a lot of priorities that seem like they're really, a lot to get done, it's like, well, let's talk about what are the priorities so that all of these things don't need to actually be done at the same time.
Right.
And then the other one that you might laugh at is like we do advocacy. Obviously, it's important work, and sometimes depending on what you're working on, there can be life implications. But for the most part of the day to day, I'll say to my staff, I'm like, we're not doctors. Nobody is
Mhm.
dying today. There's not very much that couldn't wait a day. Like it's okay.
It really is. You're so right. And I think those are really healthy reminders.
Mm,
Um, and that does feel very old way versus new way right now.
yes. Yes.
I see Gen Z in particular challenging this idea.
Yeah.
For maybe Gen X and millennials, it was a little quiet, little more quietly passed down, but that work should be the centerpiece of your identity.
Right.
And I think that's something a lot of baby boomers have taken to heart. And I think that
Yes.
a lot of Gen Zs are saying, no, there is such a thing as coming to work, doing your job with pride, or doing a respectable job and wanting it to be just one part of who you are. And that's okay. It's part to me of the same thing you're modeling, which is this isn't brain surgery.
Hmm.
It's going to be okay if something needs to flex or shift or change.
Yes. And so much of it, I think, comes back to communications. Like for I work in consulting, and I know you have in the past too, but being able to communicate to set expectations with clients. Like I find like I'll go to conferences and everybody's in and out all day, like having to run out and take client calls. Oh, I gotta go do this. I said, well, you know what I did? I emailed all my clients and said, I am going to this conference tomorrow. It is for this particular political party. I'm going to do an analysis for you about what I hear, about what's important for you to know. I am not available tomorrow because this is what I'm doing for you. There's no phone calls. I'm not meeting with you. Like nothing is happening. My out of office is on. If you have an emergency, you can talk to this person. But
Mhm.
like nobody bats an eye. Nobody's concerned. If I want to take a day off, I don't hide that I'm off. I say, hey, I'm off tomorrow. If there's an emergency, talk to this person. There rarely is. And nobody has ever given me any grief about it at all. And I see all these people running around these conferences in and out, in and out. I'm like, why don't you just tell them no for one
Right.
day?
You're so right. And I'm glad you find that. And I find that too as a
Yeah.
service provider to clients that they will take your lead when you're setting a boundary,
Yeah.
that I'm out for this period. And I think they really tend to respect it. I've found too. I think when it's trickier, though, is when you are in a culture, which I've worked
Hmm.
with the big four,
Yes.
one of the big four, and I'll never forget, we were given generous. paid time off there. Um, Not unlimited, but a generous number of weeks. And I
Hmm.
remember a manager like complaining to me about another peer of mine. She's my manager, complaining to me, so and so is taking all their PTO.
Mm,
Like that was a stain
yes.
on them. And like,
Yeah.
how dare they take, which
Yeah.
obviously sent a message to me if you want to be liked around here,
Yes.
or maybe rewarded, don't take all of the benefit you've been.
Right.
And that can be so hard to buck
Yes. It
when
is.
it's the aquarium you're swimming in.
Yeah, and I think that's part of sometimes I have to remind myself too, like I'm in the privileged role because I am the CEO, right? So if a client had a problem with me doing that or with one of my staff, I'd be like, do I really want to work with that person? Like I get to decide. And if I say no, I'm the one saying no to the money and I own the company, which is also why I think it's so important for people in leadership to lead this way so that they can create the environments for this because I recognize that it is, at least right now for me, it's a privilege. But I hope that more people read books like yours, Selena, so that it becomes more people's normal instead of yeah, the way. And I've worked for consulting firms like that too, so I know exactly the environment that you're talking about, and it is really difficult when you're in that space yourself.
It is. And I think it is a culture moment. As much as I'm an optimist and I'm for, changing your corner of the world for the better, there are definitely times you have to look around and say, is this a machine
Yes.
I even want to be a part of? And have the hard conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not, and that's okay. And I love hearing success stories like yours, like doing it on your own terms.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's so important. And I want to work hard and I want excellent work, but I want a culture where people thrive and it is about humanity. And I think those two things can exist and not everybody's quite there right now. When
Mhm.
you look at what employees are looking for right now, and I mean, I'm assuming some of it is really about that human-centric leadership, but can you unpack a little bit more? Like, what do today's employees want from their leadership?
Yeah, it's something that's become quite a buzzword and in management circles and especially because of research done at Google, but it's psychological safety. And it's this
Mm,
idea that we can take little interpersonal risks on the teams we're part of.
right.
That we don't have to be this rigid person with a mask on, censoring every statement we make, but instead that there's enough latitude, comfort, safety within the team that you can hazard a guess about something. You can
Mhm.
share your really out there, kind of strange idea. Um, you might make a prediction about the future. You're allowed to go out on a limb
Mm,
knowing it might break
yeah.
because you've got this degree of trust and comfort within the group. And that,
Mm,
again, may sound like a woo-woo thing to some people, but we have hard research that shows it leads to the best performing teams.
right.
So it's not just a nice to have.
Right.
And so we get that a few ways, practically speaking. We get it from figuring out that mistakes are okay.
Hmm.
Mistakes, especially ones we can learn from, are okay. They're not things we have to like shove under the carpet, come up with a whole campaign to like spin, you
Yes.
know, um, and cover up and, all of this stuff, right? Which like computes with our ability to do our job,
Right.
but that there is an ability to say, hey, I messed up. I thought X was Y, but it was this other way, and it's going to affect the timeline. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. And so
Hmm.
managers help us
Right.
learn that mistakes are okay and valid things and teachable moments by sharing their own.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Here's the time I undercommunicated.
Yes.
Here's a time I assume no news was good news. You
Mm,
know, there's so many common ones that we've all had a,
yes.
fail and a fumble.
Oh, yeah.
And it may relate to what you're trying to teach your team. Maybe you are talking about proactive communication and you're
Mm,
saying, here's a time I really let things slide when I shouldn't have, or avoided
mm,
the tough conversation when I shouldn't have. Um, Guess what? You are teaching them to bring that
yes.
to openness. One other
Yes.
thing you can do is I notice a lot of managers feel pressure of speed, of
Mm,
this constant speed and efficiency, right? Kind of
right.
speaks to urgency culture. And so one of the things I've noticed is if somebody pushes back on something, maybe a manager doesn't truly mind that that employee is pushing back, but they might look annoyed,
Mm,
kind of roll their eyes like, this, you're bringing this up now, like I'm trying to get us to the end here.
yes.
And you want to watch that as a
Hmm.
manager or even a teammate.
Hmm.
Um, if anything, when somebody has the courage and the pluck to push back, to dissent, to
Yeah.
disagree,
Yes.
you want to reward that. You want to, even if
Hmm.
you grant it, you
Yes.
want to say something like, that's a really important perspective. Like, please keep thinking critically like that
Yes.
about the problem. Or I'm so glad you raised that concern. It took a
Hmm.
lot of kind of nerve to share that, and I appreciate you for it. Again,
Yes.
even if you can't give them the thing they may be asking for, that is such an important part of making it safe, making it.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think it's really important. And it makes me think about some of the pieces that you're talking about in this different new style, I would say, which maybe shouldn't be, but of leadership, and how
Right.
so much of business, right, is focused on like the results and what is the research saying. And I think it's hard for people to grasp, like, what do you mean, like, especially when you talk about the older folks maybe at work, right, of like, this is how it's always been done and hard work gets you there and like everything's an emergency. But what we know now, as we're seeing in whether it's a 4-day work week or all of these types of things that are coming out, that there's also research that proves that the results within these environments stand for themselves as well. It's not just about, like, of course you want to be the good person, it's important to do, but for those that need to be convinced, it's like, and it can also help your staff be healthier, stay longer, have less turnover, and still produce the results that you need in your company.
So true. And it might feel counterintuitive.
Exactly.
I
I
think
think that's what's
similar.
hard for people because I think it does feel like that.
And I think same thing with offering like latitude,
Mm,
once again, the opposite of surveillance culture,
right.
to kind of maybe manage your tasks as
Yeah.
you see fit, to give autonomy. I think that
Mm,
can feel counterintuitive to some people, just like what you're saying,
yes.
that, giving someone a chance to refuel after a tough week
Hmm.
will somehow soften them or the relationship between you, when in fact you are just matching human rhythms.
Hmm.
We don't work at a sprint
Yeah.
nonstop, right? We have limited resources in terms of our energy. We have things, each of us, that make deposits into our energy and withdrawals every
Right.
single day. And I think it is those great managers who notice, wow, I have asked a lot of them this past week. Like they must all be in the red in terms of
Yes.
their energy. I am going to do something this week that corrects that, offers them some kind of balance, um,
Yes.
allows them to come up with their own deposit, to offset, you know, that deficit. And
Hmm.
I think once again, when I think about leading human, it's even just about that.
Yeah.
It like normalizing human rhythms. And by the way, it's so hard to do that for other people if you won't do it for yourself.
Yes. Yeah,
You know,
it is hard sometimes. I think it's so interesting because so much of like how we lead and live our lives is driven from your own personal experience, right? Like if you've had like a parent pass away and you had to kind of take care of them as that happened, right? Like you would have a different kind of appreciation for people going through that yourselves, right? And I know for me, I'm someone that lives with chronic migraine, and so it's not like I have like so much medication and stuff like that, so I'm pretty good, but I still get a few a month, and so it's not unusual for my staff to get an email and be like, I am now at the point in my day, and maybe it only happens 2 days a month where like I physically can't work. Like I am now going into my bedroom away from my desk to be in a dark room. I've put my out of office on. I can't take any meetings. You need to clear my calendar. I can't do anything. I just need to go. And they understand that there's nothing I can do about it. Like it just is. But I do think it does, one, being honest about it, like it does change the culture for when people need those moments themselves. And even sometimes I still find my staff, like if they have the flu or the cold, like they still don't want to rest. I'm like, there's nothing that needs to happen today for you to work with the flu. Like you need to rest so you can get better faster. Like this is not right. And when you were talking about if everybody's worked a hard week, there's no point in them sitting at their desk on a Friday like barely producing anything because the brain is dead from the outputs of the week, for another 8 to 10 hours. Maybe you have them work for 2 hours, get emergency stuff off their plate, and let them take the day off. You're getting the same output. Like, it's just like, it's wild.
You're so right. And I think it does make sense when you consider your own body. I sometimes talk about the concept of like interval training, right? Where you go really hard or sprint, and then you have this little valley where you can really purposely go slow. This is like what the best athletes in the world do to train. And, I think it is similar with us. And what doesn't fly anymore is just the go, go, go and never stop, the targets, the KPIs. Humans are motivated to a degree to do that. But, there's only so much you can use a whip. And I hate that, like the awfulness of that metaphor, but that's what it can feel like when it's go, go, go. And there's no recognition that you are made of human parts.
Yes. A large part of like work culture is meetings. And actually, so here's a question that I have for you is I struggle sometimes, like with my team, sometimes I'll say like, what are your priorities this week? We work remotely. And so sometimes I do find like, I don't need the micromanager pieces, but it's helpful for me to know like what are some of the big goals that need to be done this week, just so I have a more sense of what's going on. But I also don't want them to feel like a laundry list of things either. And so when you step back and look at meetings, what do you think is the most important, like objective, outcome, kind of framework? I know it will change a bit depending on, but like what's some of the best practices?
So I think one of them is being sparing in the first place with the meetings.
Yes.
I use this analogy of like Batman. When Batman was in the Batcave working on, looking at crime rates, innovating the Batmobile, studying maps of the city, right? He's doing important high value work.
Right.
And yet every time that bat signal goes off, what does he do? He drops everything and he rushes to the emergency. And I share with people, meetings are a little bit like that for your people. It is not just a gathering. It is also taking them away from deep focus in the flow work. And now imagine doing that like 7 or 8 times a day in certain work cultures, right?
Yes.
So I think that's part of my, prompt to people is to be sparing. It might be totally counterculture to where you work. There may be meetings galore. You want to wish me a happy birthday? Let's schedule a meeting for that. Like it may be that kind of culture. And so you may really be bucking and resisting a system if you
Yes.
are going to be sparing. That is going to take more work on your behalf. But I think it starts with the fewest amount of people who
Mm,
are relevant to the
yeah.
topic in the smallest amount of time. I think it's
Yes.
challenging yourself to sometimes have efficient 20-minute meetings.
Hmm.
So I think that's one part. I think another is get your people talking in the first 5 minutes.
Mm,
If you can get them talking and their voices are heard in the first 5 minutes, they're much likelier to contribute later in the meeting, that mix of people. And so, one of my favorite ways to do that is even with like a quick popcorn style question. Maybe you're focusing on, I don't know, marketing this week with your team. You might say something like, I want to hear from each of you. What's one word that comes to mind when you
hmm.
think of our brand?
Right.
Right? And again, it's just one word, but
Yes.
you are hearing people's voices early, and I promise you're going to hear them more often as a result, not
Hmm.
just the very outgoing, maybe meeting dominator, but that mix. So I think that's an important one. The last one I'd say is I've noticed, especially in hierarchical environments, the leader will always lead the meeting.
Hmm.
And I think it's such a simple way of power sharing to slice your agendas up.
Mm,
You maybe you're welcoming people, but you're saying something like, okay, great. Now June is going to walk us through the latest project of the week. And then so and so is going to walk us through the marketing part.
yes.
Very simple, but for some reason, in a lot of organizations, like if you're junior, you're not given that
Yes.
privilege, to lead a section. What a great leadership opportunity,
Yes.
especially if you're like nervous about public speaking, or you're just wanting to practice being in charge and leading a portion of a meeting. So I wish I saw that a little more.
Mm,
I think it
yes.
really shows we believe in you, you matter. Um,
Hmm.
what a great norm to establish.
Yes. And leadership, it's all encompassing in your work, right? And it makes me think about I have some work I think to do in terms of our meeting culture, but when we get on the call with clients, and I don't go to a lot of the client meetings necessarily if I'm not the lead, but when I do get on them, I do tend to take over. And I've said to my staff, I know it's bad that I do that. And so I'm like, I need to stop doing that, right? So it's little things like that where I'm like, okay, that's an area I need to work on, and that's okay. It's okay to have things to work on, and that's an area that I can improve so my staff can grow. And I don't want the clients to just say, oh, Stephanie's the one that knows everything, because that's not true.
Yeah, of course, we all do. And I think that's part of what I want to acknowledge in this book, especially to challenge that you should be bulletproof, you should be perfectly manicured and polished and sure of yourself at all times. Like, no
Right.
way. That just
Right.
doesn't exist, with or without like a superhero costume.
Right.
But instead, that you talk about some of the things you're working on,
Right.
like a trust builder with your
Yes.
people. Say either, like I coach a lot of people who have 360 assessments. What a
Mm,
trust builder to say, I
yeah.
heard from some of you that I could do a better job, being clear with directions or being
Yeah.
clear in meetings with what I'm asking of you. I want you
Yes.
to know I'm working on that.
Yeah.
And I'll be checking in with you all like periodically this year to see how that's
Yes.
going.
Yeah.
Again, you're making it so much more comfortable that they can do that, that they can acknowledge these
Yes.
things stigma free.
Yeah, it can be scary, but it can be so helpful. Um, I've managed people before, but it's only the last couple of years that I've had staff. And last year I took them each out for coffee, and one of the questions I asked is like, what could I do better or differently? Or are the things you're not getting from me that you need? And one of them was like, I think you should be on more panels. And they had some other examples. I'm like, oh, it's interesting because before I didn't have any staff and I could just decide and do whatever. And now there's also that expectation of you're our CEO, and in our head, CEOs do these kinds of things. And I was like, oh, it's fascinating. So I had to do a bit of a mind shift of, okay, now I have staff. I'm not just kind of in my little lane doing things, but I
Mhm.
owe them things as a leader. And it was a bit of a mind shift. But if you're not open to asking those types of questions, you don't get that kind of information. And, those are the things that they're wondering about or questioning. And maybe I don't need to do those things necessarily, but then it opens a conversation about them at least. Right back to
Yeah,
kind of
that's
what we were talking about earlier versus it just being in their head. Why doesn't she do that? Why doesn't she do that?
what a great point you're making that it at least opens a conversation,
Yes. Yeah.
which is enough often to make someone feel respected and
Yeah.
heard. I don't think it's that we're all always thinking you're going to green light this idea.
Yes.
Um, I think at least half of it is feeling heard, feeling
Hmm.
like your thought was entertained,
Hmm.
um, or like people, it was met with curiosity,
Yes.
genuine curiosity. Tell me more
Yes.
about that. Like, what would it mean if I didn't, have more of a public facing, and then on the other side, what do you think that could add?
Right.
Um,
Yes.
so that's such a great example.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was very interesting. I also like to allow them to push back at me too. So I'm like, I might say no to something and I'll usually tell you why, but you're allowed to counter argue if you really think I'm wrong. Like, I'll tell you if it's like a final, like, no, we're not doing that. But like you're allowed. And I remember one time my staff had an idea and it might have been like a year later and I was like, okay, so Andrew, you might remember you had suggested this, or so and so you might have remembered suggesting this. And I thought at the time it wasn't, maybe the best idea. And now we're going to do it. And you know what? You were right. And thank you for continuing to push for that because now we're
Mm,
going to do it. And they
that is
kind of
so,
rolled their eyes like you could have done it a year ago, but you eventually get there, right? And
yeah.
so,
Yeah. And isn't that the beauty, right, of your team with their different ideas and thoughts about what's relevant now and what's the right
mhm,
move now?
mhm.
Um, Such a great kind of like collective intelligence moment where five was better than one, truly, or
Yes,
whatever the number is.
yes,
Um, Absolutely.
yes.
I love seeing those moments like catalyze and spark.
Right. One thing I think that women leaders probably struggle with is like the work-life balance aspect, right? And we don't want to always push that back onto the staff. And like what advice do you have where we're trying to create this environment and you struggle with it yourself?
Hmm. I think first is just to realize and remind yourself something I have to remind myself. Nobody is ever going to do this for you.
Mm,
And that
yes.
is true as a manager and
Yeah.
it's true as a professional. I don't
Yes.
care how wonderful your manager is,
Hmm.
they can't, and it's not their job to assess your batteries inside and know, what you need at every moment. Like you are the chief negotiation officer of your time, your bandwidth,
Yes.
your vacation days, whatever it may be. And so I think that's the first mindset shift. It's certainly something I wish someone had sat down and told me that
Mm,
there's no such thing as inbox zero.
yes. No, no.
You are going to get
Uh,
more requests, most likely, than you can handle. You're going to get more emails, most likely, than you can respond to in a day.
yeah.
Um, so kind of accepting the mess that
Mm,
is, because if you're a type A control freak, like
yeah.
I've been a lot of my life, there's this dissatisfaction and maybe
Yes.
even self-judgment when you don't get to inbox zero, this like
Yes.
made up place, I think. Um,
Yeah.
that constant striving. And so I think it takes a degree of self-trust to say, I'm going to get a reasonable amount done. I'm going to prioritize what matters most.
Yes.
And like, I'm going to leave and really close the book, really close the laptop at
Yes.
5
Yeah.
and fully let myself off the hook when the
Yes.
day is
Yeah. I like to think through like if you only did like three things today that absolutely had to be done, like what
done.
are they? And sure, there's other things that need to be done, but those are the things that, like, literally today is the deadline. And that certainly helps. And sometimes I find, like, at the end of the day, I'm so stressed because there was all these things I didn't have time for. And then you go do life with your family and everything, and you don't get back to your desk till the next day. And I look and, like, there's no reason why that stuff couldn't wait a day. Like, it's wild how, like, at 5 o'clock all of a sudden it becomes so stressful. And then the next morning you're like, yeah, there's no reason it can't just be today. Like, it's kind
Yeah,
of funny.
but that's such a great catch that you caught that in yourself. And I think a lot of us tell ourselves stories like that about urgency, about you must, you should,
Right.
why haven't you?
Yeah.
Why can't you just focus and sit down and get this done? Like, I know I've
Yes.
thought that
Yes.
thought. And it's like, welcome to the human race.
Yeah.
You're not a robot.
Yeah.
You don't just churn things out and produce like an
Yes.
order taker.
I remember one time writing a letter. I don't usually work like super late at night just because I know my brain's not as good, but I wrote, I think, like a letter for a member of parliament or something, but I did it very late at night. And like the next day, my boss was like, this is not great. And I was like, and I read it and I was like, this is awful. I'm like, I wrote it really late at night and this is really bad. Like, let me go rewrite that. It was so bad. When I rewrote
Like,
it, I
right.
reread it,
It's
I was
like,
like horrified.
yeah, but like a teachable moment, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
maybe more isn't always better.
Yes. And
And
a
I
total ownership of like, yeah, let me just take that back.
oh, completely. And
Yeah.
again, like sometimes there's a culture of that. Like an executive wrote, oh, I better
Yes.
reply within the next 5 minutes, or it seems like I don't care and I'm apathetic. And we need to watch those things,
Hmm.
and I think a powerful thing if you do have some status, if you are in charge of people, is to make a point sometimes to say things like, this is low priority, by the way, or
Mm.
this is not, this can wait till next
Right.
week when we
Yes.
chat next. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like a little thing, but it's telling people because
Yes.
your people may prioritize all your asks
Right.
at the same level of, oh,
Right.
she probably wants me to start it ASAP.
Right. And I think it goes back to that communication piece too. And hopefully people have the environment where they're allowed to have this type of communication. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know all the things. So like, you need to tell me, you need to advocate for yourself. As
Mhm.
soon as you let me know, I can help you figure it out. If you're running out of time with a project and you need extra hands, if you ask me by the time it's late or 30 minutes before, probably not ideal. But if you can try and stop yourself, a few hours before or a day before, I will bring other people in to help you. I will help you, but you have to communicate. So it's part of the back and forth and creating that environment where people aren't afraid to communicate it either.
That's so smart. I love that you do that. And what a kind of permission slip to your people. If I
Hmm.
was one of them, I imagine that feeling of like, I'd rather you communicate to me and share the bad news
Hmm.
than wait. And
Yes.
everyone be like, oops, what do we do? There's no time.
Yeah.
Um, that's really empowering. I think that's encouraging that communication, maybe from a more reserved person who might not want to, um,
Yes.
yeah, and showing them that like you're going to back them up with the support.
Yeah. And to me, that's like professional and maturity, right? Is if you can see, oh yeah, this is coming and it's not gonna make it. Then,
Right.
you can solve problems together. Is there anything you want to add before we jump into some rapid fire questions? I know we've covered a lot of concepts, but just want to check in if we've missed anything big.
I would say one thing that, again, really, I think conveys modern leadership, reaches your people, makes them feel like capable grown-ups, is to decline extras when they
Mm.
come your way. Um, you know, Extra privileges. And I think when you're in a leadership role, you sometimes stop noticing that you're getting those or that they're
Ah,
special, these little
right.
perks. Um, and so it might be, lunch with the client. The client sees you as the face of the team. So they're always asking you, saying, you know what? would you like to represent the team this
Hmm.
month at the client lunch? I think you'd be great at it, and I would like to step back this month.
Hmm.
Those little moments, again, they may not feel like heavyweight to you, but they might be big leadership moments to someone else who
Yes.
is never client facing, who's behind the scenes a lot of the time. Same things with professional development. Maybe you're
Hmm.
invited to offsites or fun networking events, and like your people don't necessarily get extended the same invite.
Yes.
Um, deflecting sometimes and encouraging them to go to get
Hmm.
access to attend. So I think that's an important one of just awareness. Share the spotlight. You're
Yes.
asked to go speak on a panel and represent your company. Like, again, what a great opportunity for someone else if you've done plenty
Yes.
of that.
Yeah, that's a great reminder because I think sometimes you get stuck in like, oh yeah, that's my role, it's part of my job description, they've asked me, but then, to create some of those opportunities for others is so important and a good reminder. So thank you. Let's move on to some of the rapid fire questions.
Sure.
What is one thing that a manager can do in the environment of quiet quitting?
Hmm. So I think one thing a manager can do is with someone who's disengaged, look to them and see them not as having no spark, but a spark having gone out.
Mm, so
So
true.
kind of believe that that spark can be reignited. Because if you go to
Ah,
them like this is a foregone conclusion and you are not even worth, you know, um, trying to engage, they are going to feel that. And
right,
I think it's the wrong approach. I think it's a
right.
matter of being genuinely curious, being honest to call
Hmm.
out what you see. But, I noticed you participate a lot less in meetings than you used to. And, it seem kind of lackluster when you're talking about the product you're in charge of. When did you start feeling this way?
Mm,
Try to diagnose a little bit when the spark went out and why, and you might find out
right.
different things. I
Yeah.
in one situation, someone I coached, like I had to work with another department and I completely got like bullied and beat up,
Yeah.
metaphorically in that process. It was really demoralizing, right? So
Mm,
I think that's an important thing in this time of quiet quitting. Bring the generosity, the curiosity, and see if there's not like a morsel of the
yes.
good you can
Yeah.
bring back.
Oh, that's fascinating. What's one sentence that you could use to lower the temperature of a tense moment?
I think you could make the observation first, the non-judgmental
Mm,
observation. I'm noticing the conversation is getting really heated, or I'm noticing loud voices in this room. Um, I'd like to suggest that we all take a 5-minute breather and come back and kind of reset expectations.
hmm. Yeah, that's a great one. What is one meeting habit that you would ban?
That's such a great question. I really love that question. Hmm. I would say something I've seen in town hall meetings where people are gathered. There's so much communication spin. There's
Mm,
so much vetting of questions, and I've sometimes been hired to be of help on these town halls.
right.
I think for Gen Z, for many employees, but especially younger generations, the kind of incongruous
Hmm.
fakeness
Hmm.
of some settings when leaders can't just answer honestly, but things are heavily vetted, spin is put on them, feels really bad. So I think
Right.
when we do town halls, I'd encourage people, even if you have to have fewer, make them honest, make
Yeah.
them real, ask
Right.
the tough questions.
Especially because you're having them for a reason that usually
Right.
means there's stuff you need to unpack or things you want to communicate. And so then not being able to, like, you can't actually reach your objectives if it's done in
Yeah.
such a mechanical way.
Right. Like we've all seen press conferences,
Yeah.
right? And it would be odd if we only chose the like lovely questions that put us in a great light,
Yes.
and ignore every other reporter in the room.
Yes.
And that's how it can feel, I think, to some people.
Yeah. No, it's very important. So I want to end with what's the best leadership book that you've read that's not your own?
What a great question. Oh, I know one, and it may or may not fall under the category of leadership, but I think it does. And it's called Rest is Resistance.
Oh,
It
yes.
is one of my favorite books on earth. As somebody who's kind of struggled with my productivity is my worth.
Yes. Mm,
And
yep.
what a refreshing, eye-opening view of how to be a leader in your life who can sustain themselves.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation and talking about all these things. I'll be diving into your book more, and we'll put the information in the show notes so people can check out not just your past episode that we've chatted about off the top, but also about your book as well and where to find you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's always great to be with you, and just thank you for all the work you do to amplify women.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Women Don't Do That. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating or review. Connect with us on Instagram at Women Don't Do That and visit our website www.womendon'tdothat.com for more details. Join our Patreon to support our work. Find all of the links in the show notes. Remember, you have the power to transform your what ifs into let's go. Together, let's redefine your possible. Until next time. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Women Don't Do That, Stephanie Mitten, or affiliated brands.